Hello, this is Unit 2, Lesson 5, Notes, the Quadratic Formula and Solving Review. Most of you know the quadratic formula now, so the main part of these notes are steps to follow to solve a quadratic. Okay? Because you might see an equation and it might not be in standard form, so you won't know yet how it's going to work out. Okay, so these are what we suggest you guys follow in terms of solving a quadratic if you're not told to solve it a specific way. All right, so the first thing you should do is combine like terms. All right, this is important. You get your squared terms, you get your linear terms, and constant terms. Okay, you might only have two, you might have three. Okay, if you have two terms or you have a binomial, you have a couple options for this. You could solve this by square root. Okay, but if you don't see a perfect square, then what you're probably going to have to do is factor. And if it's two terms, the factoring is either going to be a difference of two squares or GCF, greatest common factor. All right. If it's a trinomial, again, you're not setting it equal to 0 quite yet. Okay? You're just identifying how many terms you have. Okay, let me actually go back up here. With this factoring, once you determine it's not going to be a square root, before you can factor, you've got to set the whole thing equal to 0 and then factor it. Okay. All right. So if it's a trinomial, you're either going to be, you can try to factor it first. Well, actually, let me start over here. So you can set equal to 0 and then try to factor. All right. If it doesn't factor, if A is 1 and B is even, you can do completing the square. Okay. So trinomial, set equal to 0 and factor. Okay. If it doesn't factor, try complete the square. If it gets too messy, you can always use quadratic formula. The quadratic formula will solve any quadratic equation. All right. But there are some things we want you guys to do specifically. We may ask you specifically to solve by factoring or solve by completing the square so we can tell you mastered those skills. Okay. So just to review that, to use the quadratic formula, okay, the equation must be in standard form. All right, let's review what that is. Remember, that's ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay. And you need to set it equal to 0. Okay. So that's why it's kind of the last step. You've already set something equal to 0 to see if you can factor using complete the square. If those don't work, you can do quadratic formula. Okay. All right. So in case you forgot, quadratic formula, x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Remember, you're finding zeros with this, so don't, when you do quadratic formula, make sure you're actually saying at the end x equals something. Okay? And you should usually be getting two answers. You're always going to get a plus or minus. All right? All right, so this first example, not in standard form. So we got to combine like terms and see what we have. So I've got 3x squared plus 2x equals x squared plus 3x plus 4. Okay. So I've got 2x squared. I've got minus x equals 4. Okay. So I've got three different terms here, right? I've got a squared term, I've got a linear term, squared, linear, and a constant. So it's a trinomial, all right? So I'm not going to be able to do square root with this. Now maybe I could do complete the square and then do square root, but a is not equal to 1 here. Here a is 2. B is negative 1. All right, so to figure out c, let's get this in standard form. So 2x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. All right, so that makes c negative 4. So you could certainly try complete the square. You're going to have a fraction, which I know a lot of us don't like. So you can go ahead and just do quadratic formula. All right, so plug this in. So b is negative 1. So be careful with the formula here. The formula says opposite of b. Be careful saying negative, because then if you get a negative b, you don't change it. Because what you should get here is a positive 1. Plus or minus square root negative 1 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And now we simplify. So 1 plus or minus a square root. Inside I get 1. Negatives make positive. 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. Oh, I didn't put in what a was. A is 2. So this should be 4. So my denominator is 4. And then I need to simplify this. 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. All right? It might not look like it, but there's two answers here, right? One of them is 1 plus square root of 33 over 4. The other one is 1 minus the square root of 33 over 4. Okay? So, just to review this, we combined like terms. We identified it was a trinomial. We didn't actually try to factor it, but if you tried to do this by grouping in negative 8, two numbers that multiply to negative 8 will never add up to negative 1. So we can't factor it. Complete the square you could always do, but it can be messy. So you do quadratic formula. Okay? So those are the steps. Now, I have a couple of examples on the back. There are lots of different ways this could work out. I just want to give you a couple to practice so that you can see the different options. All right? So let's look at the next one. If you feel comfortable with these, go ahead and pause the video, try these, and check your answers. If not, do the second example with me. Okay, and then for number 1, you'll try on your own and then check your work. Okay, so we got x squared plus 4x equals negative 4. All right, so again, I've got a trinomial. Okay, so I can't do square root. I could try complete the square, but I got to set it equal to 0 first. I get x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Okay? You can also factor this. So if you can factor it, complete the square will work also. Okay, it's just a matter of preference if we give you that choice. All right, but this actually factors two numbers that multiply to 4 that add up to 4, or 2. Right? And I get x plus 2 squared. All right, and x equals negative 2. So you do have a choice with this one. All right, we can complete the square or you can factor it. You should get the same thing. Okay, so go ahead and try number 1 here and see what you get. Okay, so for this example, you should have gotten 7 over 2 or -1 as your solutions. Now, I did quadratic formula. You could have factored this. Your factors would have been 2x minus 7 and x plus 1. Okay? So it's really personal preference if we give you that choice. So if you factored this, you could have also gotten to this answer. All right? All right, let's look at the next topic. We want you to write an equation if we give you the zeros or x-intercepts. So these are my zeros here. I want you to write a quadratic equation. So what this means is that x equals -1/2, or x would have to equal -2/3. So how do you get this to a factored form and then get it to an equation? Well, go backwards. How did you get from the factor to the solution? Right? You set it equal to 0 and you solved it. Well, now it's set equal to x. Now let's set it equal to 0. So multiply both sides by 2. I get 2x equals -1. And I get 2x plus 1 equals 0. So one of my factors is 2x plus 1. Same thing over here. 3x equals 2, or 3x minus 2 equals 0. My other factor is 3x minus 2. We want you to put this in standard form, so go ahead and FOIL it. You should get 6x squared plus 3x minus 4x is minus x minus 2. This is my function. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and do the example for the x-intercepts as well. Okay? It's very similar, except remember, we give you the x-intercept as a point. Well, if the intercept is -5 over 2, 0, that means the solution was x equals -5 over 2. Okay? If my x-intercept is 0, 0, well, that means my solution was 0. All right, well, for x to equal 0, that means my factor was x. Okay? So now it's the same thing as above. Multiply both sides by 2 over here. And then I add 5 to both sides. So my other factor is 2x plus 5. So to find my standard form, I take x and multiply by 2x plus 5. I should get 2x squared plus 5x. All right. So go ahead and try number 2 and number 3 and see what you get. All right, so for your first one, this got moved around a bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so you should get 3x squared plus 11x minus 20. Your factors are x plus 5 and 3x minus 4. For the next one, your factors are 5x minus 2 and x plus 4. Your equation should be 5x squared plus 18x minus 8. Okay, so as always, go ahead and make a note of any questions you have, and we will practice this in class next time. Thank you.